Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are also ready to learn a little bit more about iOS development today. And today we are going to be talking about the very interesting subject of managing your views when the keyboard comes up from the bottom and what to do after it slides back down. Now, in order for me to illustrate how to do some of this stuff, let's go into the simulator here and take a look at the Facebook Messenger chat application we have so far. So I'm going to click into the very first row here, and notice I can scroll up and down, and we have this text field on the very bottom along with this send button. So notice what happens when I click into the text field. The first thing that happens is that the keyboard slides up, and then the text field also slides up with it, and then the collection view adjusts itself so that the last message is showing up at the very bottom here, and then the scroll content view is properly sized so that you can scroll the entire contents of the collection view. So we're going to go through how to exactly do this from a starting point of this. So go back to Xcode, run this Facebook Messenger chat code that we have so far, and I'm going to show you where we are at. So basically, this screen does not contain the text field. It contains this little tab bar at the very bottom. We're going to get rid of that and implement this keyboard management technique. So make sure to click down below in the link in the description to get kind of caught up with what we're trying to build right here. Basically, we've been kind of coding up this application so far to get to this point with all of these messages, and now we're finally ready to do something interesting with the keyboard. So now that I have that shrunken down, I want to do one thing very first thing right here. And basically, I'm going to get rid of the tab bar at the very bottom. And to do that, we're going to go into ChatLogController, and this is basically the screen here. And the first thing we want to do is to just say tab bar controller right here, tab bar dot hidden equals true. So that's going to hide the tab bar at the very bottom, and as we run the application, click into a row, we get the tab bar and it's missing at the very bottom. So notice that it's also doing this little strange thing here where the scroll is not going all the way down to the bottom border, but that's okay. We're going to use this bottom space for our text field input and also the send button at the very right there. Okay. Pretty good. And one thing I want to fix is when I hit this back button, notice how the tab bar is no longer there. So I'm going to run this application, show you one more time with the tab bar there. The tab bar is down here. And if I click into this, the tab bar goes away. And I need to bring it back upon this view will appear. So this screen right here is under view controller, friends controller. And I'm going to provide a view will appear method here, call the super view will appear with the animated boolean. And right here, I will just say tab bar controller, tab bar dot hidden equals false. Essentially, this is going to bring back the tab bar into the screen once we come back to the friends list. So click here, tab bar goes away, click back, the tab bar comes back. It's pretty basic and hopefully should be straightforward. Now let's go ahead and figure out how to get the text field inside of this screen. So text field, button, and this line there. And I'm going to illustrate how to do that by doing one thing here first. So basically, what I have in this screen right here is a container that contains all of these two components right here. So I'm going to add a container view, and let me just hit back there. So I'm going to add a container at the very bottom down here, and I'm going to make it red. So let's go back to ChatLogController, and right here, I'm going to say this. So let message input container view be a type of UI view. Let's just create it here. UI view is that. Turn that view. Let's see, looks like that. Get rid of that line. Close the block out. Now let's change this background color to a color of red color like so. And finally, I want to add this container view into this collection view like that. And we do that very easily by going into view.load and saying view, add subview. And right here, we'll actually add that container view down there. And to get it to show up inside of this view here, we need to add some constraints. So I'm going to use add constraints with format. I'm going to do this here. So view is message container view like that. I'm going to add this here. So let me just type this out and then explain to you a little bit as to what it's doing. So this should be roughly 48, I think. Okay. So these constraints are going to establish a left to right expanding of this view in the middle. So left edge to right edge. And this is saying on the bottom edge, we're going to have the view be 48 pixels tall on the vertical axis. So it might be confusing, but let's just run it and confirm that the constraints are exactly what we tell them to be. So that's what it means. 48 pixels from the bottom, we have this red bar view. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the text field into the red bar, and I'm going to do that into inside of a different function called setup input components. That I'm going to create that down here as a private function, setup input components, like so. And here we'll set up that text field that we want, sort of like this text field right there. And I'm going to create a reference up here for that text field, and I'm going to call it input text field, be a type of UI text field. And let's create this programmatically in code. Call it text field, UI text field dot placeholder will be enter message dot dot. Let's just return this text field here and close that off. Now we can actually access this input text field and add it into our container input container view right there. So message container view, add subview, and add this input text field here. And I want to just expand it fully inside of this red view. So nothing too crazy about it. And all we have to do is do this here. So add constraints with format and use this horizontal fully expand left to right like this, with V0 being this input text field. And then finally, we'll do the same thing from the top edge to the bottom edge by using V as the visual format axes right there inside of that string. So now that I click into this box here, I get this enter message at the very bottom. It's kind of in this faint dark red color. So I'm going to change this to just say light gray color for this red background there. And notice how the keyboard is already coming out. And that's exactly what we want. So I'm going to run this one more time and show you when I click here, we get this text field down here. And I want to just push it over 8 pixels by putting 8 like that. That'll give me some space on the left. And finally, running the application one more time, we get the text field showing up 8 pixels from the left. And this is scrolling nicely with the bounds in the exact location we want it to be. Okay, so how do we handle the event in which the keyboard shows up from the bottom like that, and want to bring this gray block to the bottom here? So essentially we want to make it appear right above the keyboard. So what I mean is I want to click here and I want this to appear right above the keyboard, right? And the way to do that is to detect whenever the keyboard comes up, we want to just move this view to this area right here. So there's actually some math going on in that animation or that relocation of the view. So let me just type it out and show you what I will be doing. Okay, the first thing we want to implement is a listener for when the keyboard shows up. And to do that, we will just simply do this. ns notification center dot default center, add observer, and observer will be self, selector will be this selector down here. So func handle keyboard notification, there we go. And for selector, we do pound selector handle keyboard notification like that. Then for the string, we will say UI keyboard show will show notification with an object of nil. So hopefully that's working out. So this needs to be a selector like that with that function inside there. So keyboard notification. I think this is missing an I right there. So there we go. And here is the interesting part. So this method will actually take in a parameter called notification, which is an NS notification like that. And if we print out a couple of values, we can get the actual rect or the frame for the keyboard. So I'm going to show you by first unwrapping this user info object like this. So user info equals notification dot user info. And we can do this here. We can actually get the keyboard frame for whenever this keyboard is fired. So I'm going to do that by doing this. So keyboard frame equals user info, and it's actually a dictionary what this user info object is. And if you access UI keyboard frame and user info key, I know it's kind of confusing, but if you just type it out like this, rect value, you actually get the keyboard frame. So what I mean is if I just print out the keyboard frame like that, I will get the coordinates inside of my console as to where the keyboard starts and how wide and tall it should be. So I'm gonna click that. And notice when I click on this message here, the keyboard will pop up and the console will have some values inside of it. So it's saying that it starts at 0 right here, 442 is down at this point here, and then it's 375 pixels wide along with the 225 pixels in height. So pretty straightforward. And now what I want to do is I want to animate this gray box to those coordinates. So basically right above this keyboard value or this keyboard frame right here. So the easiest way to do that, and so notice how when I rotate the keyboard, or rotate the app, this little text field on this gray block remains at the very bottom of the screen. And that's because we have constraints set up like this, so everything stays nicely clamped down to the bottom. So one thing that I didn't mention about this constraint is that we can actually modify this constraint here so that we can modify the the bottom pinning whenever we are inside of this keyboard function handler. So what I mean is I can actually create a constraint here. So I'm going to remove this pipe down here. If I do that and run, the application is actually not going to show that that gray bar, I don't think. So the gray bar is gone. And the way we bring back the gray bar is to create that actual pipe constraint like this. So instead of using that pipe right there, we're going to use this constraint called bottom constraint. I'm going to make this NS layout constraint here. And you need to use this item method. And for the item, we'll use message input container view. For attribute, we'll use bottom related by equal. To item will be the actual view. And attribute will be bottom again with a multiplier of 1 and constant of 0. So a lot of confusing values if you haven't used this before. And the final thing we have to do is add constraint and use this right there, call bottom constraint. So I'm going to run this now, and then you're going to see that it actually pins this message input container view to the bottom of the actual view. I'm going to click this, and now you see this, it pops up at the very bottom. So the interesting bit about this entire method call is this constant value right here. So if I use a value of, let's say, -100, I'm going to show you by running the application that the message input container view, that gray view, will actually go up by -100 pixels. So basically this technique is what I'll be using inside of this keyboard handler. And I'm going to bring that to above the keyboard frame. And so you might have already guessed it, we actually need a reference to this bottom constraint inside of here. And to create that reference, we'll need to create it up here. So bottom constraint, and it's layout constraint like that as an optional value. And for this, we'll establish this bottom constraint right here, and we'll need to unwrap it with a bang like that. And finally, we'll run that to see that our application is going to remain the same and nothing has broken. So it looks good. Now I want to bring this 100 back down to 0 to pin it to the bottom. And so basically it's going to appear at the bottom over here. And let me just run that to show you what I mean. And the next thing I will be doing is I will be bringing this to this area right here above the keyboard frame. And so to do that, all we have to do is do this one thing right here. So bottom constraint dot constant. So basically we're going to modify this constant value here, and we need to say this. So keyboard frame dot height like that, and then we need to use the negative value and just unwrap the keyboard frame like so. And finally, running the application, I'll click into this Steve Jobs row and click this value here. And notice how once I click it, the bottom constraint constant changes to the actual keyboard frame height, and then it just nicely appears right above the keyboard like that. So nothing too tricky once you see how this kind of works. And notice how when I rotate the application, so let me just bring that down here, bring it up a little bit. Notice how when I rotate the app, it actually goes, it actually maintains this frame for this input area right above the keyboard. And if you've done this in the past using recs and frames for actually changing the location of this area here, it's actually a lot harder with recs to make sure your keyboard and your layouts are perfectly aligned. So this technique is pretty straightforward and pretty easy to implement in my opinion. Hopefully you'll find that it's easy as well. The one thing that we have to do here is I want to actually dismiss the keyboard whenever something happens. So I'm going to just simply dismiss it by calling did select item at index path, and I'm going to call this message. Actually, it's input text field end editing force equals true, and we actually need to override this function here. And once I have this inside of the view controller, I can simply dismiss the keyboard by selecting one of these items here. So the keyboard goes away. And now I want to animate this, or I want to get this input area back down to the bottom. So the way to do that is to listen to whenever the keyboard goes away. So we can add another notification listener, and instead of calling show, we'll call hide. So UI keyboard will hide notification like that. And then we will actually check when the keyboard is hiding like this. So we'll do this here. We'll create a Boolean variable right here. So we'll call it is keyboard hiding. And then for this, we will say this. Actually, is keyboard showing. And we'll just equal to notification.name is equal to UI keyboard will show like that. So if it's showing, the notification will be that. Otherwise, this will be false. So when to do is showing, we'll use this. Otherwise, use the value of 0. So the moment I show the keyboard, it will slide up like this. And then when the keyboard is hiding, it will, this keyboard is showing Boolean will be a value of false. And then we'll just go back to 0 as we set up in the view to load function there. So click, and then the actual text input area goes back down like that. Pretty easy, nothing too fancy. And the final bit of magic we want to add to this cool trick is actually animate this input area to the top instead of just kind of magically blinking up there. Okay, so here is the actual magic to animate this little block here above the keyboard frame. So here's what I'm going to do. Inside of our handle keyboard notification method, I'm going to call a animation like this. So let's call UI view animate with duration, and we'll call this method right here. So animate with duration, it uses options method here. For duration, we'll just use 0, delay is 0, and for options, we'll use UI view animation options dot curve curve ease out. For animation, we'll just hit enter. For complete it, we'll enter and use complete it for this boolean here. Get rid of that code. And inside of this block here, we'll actually need to call self view dot layout if needed. And basically, what this is doing is once you change this constraint right here, so bottom constraint dot constant is whatever value. If we just call self view dot or self view layout if needed, it will just do the animation for us like this, right? So pretty sweet, pretty easy. Just requires one line of code after we initialize some kind of animation. Not too bad, right? Let's see. Now the next thing that we want to do is we want to finish up this component here by adding a send button on the right. So what I am going to do is I am going to remove this light gray color, and I'm going to show you what happens actually. So if I remove that light gray color for this container view, which is that gray block, you're going to see the collection view kind of peeking into this bottom area right there. And the way to fix that is to actually just use white color for the background color, and I'll just block out whatever the collection view is showing. So run that, click into this row here, and it just nicely blocks out the items in the back. Pretty easy, right? Now I'm going to add this send button onto the container view. So I'm going to create a reference here. So call it self button or send button. Type UI button like that. I'm just going to create it in code. This with type of system. I'm going to return this button right here. Close it off. And now we can set some interesting title properties on this button. First, we'll say title is send like that. For the state is normal, and say normal like so. And for the title color, let's see, what is it? Set title color. Yes. For color, we'll use this right here. So let title color equals UI color. We'll use an RGB value of 0. I think it's 137 over 255, 249, and alpha 1. This will be title color like that. Normal. And we can actually mess with the title labels font like this. So UI font, bold, system font of, let's say, 16. And now that we have this send button all set up, we can add it into our setup input components like this. So let's add it as a subview of message input container view by adding subview, send button like so. And then notice how we have this horizontal constraint already set up here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add onto this horizontal constraint by just doing this. So v1 60 like this, and I'm going to add in this send button at the very end. What this means is send button will be 60 pixels wide like this, and then v0, which is this input text field, will just expand the remaining width of this container view. And finally, I'll do this vertical constraint by copying and pasting and using send button like that. Now I'm going to run and show you, after I click into this row here, that the bottom has both of these views here, this text field view and this send button on the right down here. Now, I guess one little detail that's missing here is this little top border line. And so basically what I mean is I want to add a border that separates the collection view behind and the text input area on the bottom. And we just do that very, very easily by creating this top border view, equals UI view, top border view. Background color is UI color. Let's just use white 05, 0.5. And here is what we are going to do. So at the very end, we're just going to add some constraints. After we add it here, so let's just use top border view. Very bottom, we'll use message input container, add constraints with format like this, expand it horizontally, left edge to right edge, top border view. And then we'll use a vertical constraint here of, let's see, it's at the top, so let's get rid of this bottom pin and use a height of 0.5. That's going to give us a very thin line at the very top of this container down here. So pretty good, I think. And let's see, click that, and we get that, click that, we get this, and let's see, looks pretty good. The one final thing that I want to do is whenever I click into this text field, I actually want to bring it, I want to bring the last text up or scroll the collection view so that the last message is being shown. So what I mean is when I'm up here, I'm going to click this. I actually want to see the last message so that it makes the UX a little bit better. Let's see. And I'm going to do that inside of this handle keyboard notification method. And inside of this animation block, inside of completion, I'm going to actually animate the collection view like this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call self collection view. And I'm going to scroll to item at index path. And this requires an index path with a scroll position of bottom and an animation of true here. Right, so what is index path? Basically, it is the last item inside of the collection view, and it will be index path, and that's index path like this for item, and item will be, let's see, will be self.messages dot, unwrap it and get the count from it, and subtract 1, and it'll be section 0, like so. So we'll just put that inside of this scroll to item here, and we should be okay. So I'm gonna run this and bring back the simulator right here. I'm click on that, and the moment I click on this, it'll animate this last message to the very middle, like so. And when I click it away, it kind of goes away. Let's see. I don't really like that animation there, so I'm going to catch it by doing this. If is keyboard showing, then animate. Otherwise, just don't do anything when the keyboard is hiding. Let's bring this back up to the top there. And here we go. Click, and keyboard animates. Collection view animates as well. I do it down here, and then the collection view just stays in place when I dismiss the keyboard. Wow. Okay, all right, looks good. So that looks good as well. And let's see, down there. So yeah, let's see, bring it back. Pretty good. And that pretty much concludes the video for today. A lot of interesting stuff, how to manage the keyboard, how to adapt your views so that the layouts are kind of respected by the new keyboard frame changes. And hopefully you guys liked the content today. Make sure to hit the like button if you do. And remember, this channel is all about teaching you guys how to build iOS apps by taking a somewhat complicated app that's out there in the App Store, breaking it down and rebuilding it back up piece by piece so that you guys can learn how to put things together. If you want to be part of all this, make sure to subscribe. Thanks, and bye-bye.